Hi guys, I'm Alexandra from largefamilymama.com, and today I want to talk about when children are feeling depressed or anxious or stressed out during this lockdown, the things that you can do to help them. So I have a few practical tips that you can easily put into place that can help your child if they're feeling a bit anxious during this lockdown. As I'm filming this video now, we are almost in our 300th day of lockdown. Almost a year, and it is unbearable for a lot of people, and I think it's particularly hard for teenagers because this is the time in their lives when they should probably be their most sociable, and they are missing out on so many things that they were hoping to be doing, such as going to college or university or doing their exams. Some people actually want to do their exams, or going to their prom or anything like that. There's so many different things that they're missing out on, including finding a boyfriend or girlfriend. They're just feeling so stuck at the moment, so stuck, and just feeling like this lockdown is never going to end. So I really want to offer you some tips that could help those teenagers, especially, that are feeling particularly depressed. So my first tip is to listen to your child. They might be telling you that they're really hating their lives at the moment and they've got nothing good to look forward to, and my initial thing when I hear my children talking like that is to try and say, oh, don't be silly, everything's fine, we're okay, so many people have got it far worse than you. But that's not really very helpful. What's more helpful is to really listen and understand that this is definitely a very, very difficult time for them right now. And it does feel bad. And yes, there are people that are worse off, but it doesn't make them feel any better knowing that. They feel terrible. And if you can show them that you understand that, then that could really help them. Another thing that you can do to help is to try to get them to see that it would be a good idea if they reduce their screen time. A lot of kids at the moment are spending all their time looking at their phones, and you can kind of understand it because they can't see their friends in real life, so they're talking to them online. But when they're online, there's a lot of negative things that they will see that will just make them feel worse. They can't escape the news when they're online because someone's always talking about it, and looking at the news right now is not a good idea. It's not going to help anybody to look at the news, is it? It's just going to make anybody feel miserable. So it's a good idea to reduce screen time purely so you don't have to see so much of that. And also, because there are so many teenagers that are feeling miserable due to this lockdown, some of them are being bullies and just being hurtful to other people because that's the only thing they can do to make themselves feel better, I guess. So there's a lot of bullying going on right now online, so that's another reason to just turn your screen off and stop looking for a moment. Just do something else. My third tip is to help your child to clean up their room, their personal space. When you're depressed, you can end up not noticing your environment very much because you're sort of so stuck in your own head, and then you just start to have a mess accumulate, and then you do look at it and you think, oh no, I don't know where to begin. So perhaps offer to help your child start clearing up their room, because once it's been started, that's the hardest part, is starting, then it's a far easier thing to do, and get them to wash their bedding and just clean up and have that nice space for themselves. My next tip is to get outside. Now, I know we're in lockdown, but we are allowed to go out to exercise, and that could just be for a walk. So try to get your child to go out for a walk. If they don't want to go on their own, go with them. It could be half an hour, whatever, but just have a walk about, get some fresh air. That really helps to clear your head and get some things into perspective. Another, what I think is a great idea, is to begin a journal. Now, this is such a unique time in history, and it would be such a cool idea to start a journal that perhaps your child can show their children in the future and their grandchildren and say, hey, look, this is what I went through, this is how it felt for me when we were going through the dreadful lockdown of 2020, 2021. Because it's just such a bizarre time, and journaling is also just a really good way to be able to release all those feelings and put your feelings into words without actually having to even talk to anybody. My next piece of advice is to hug your child. Now, they might be at the age where they don't want you to hug them, but still just like rub their back or give them a hug just every so often, just to keep letting them know that you love them. And that physical contact is so important. It releases chemicals in the brain which are really going to help relieve that depression. My next tip is to try and eat a bit more healthily. Obviously, you don't need to eat perfectly healthy all the time, but the majority of the time try to eat healthy, try to get your child to eat healthily. So lots of fruit and veg and unprocessed foods, because when we're feeling miserable we just want to have a quick treat or whatever that's going to make us feel good for that instant, but obviously those things in the end make us feel worse. So a treat every so often is fine, but the majority of the time try to provide a healthy diet if you can. And that brings me to my next point, which is to encourage your child to treat themselves or pamper themselves quite regularly. Just because we're in lockdown does not mean that we have to suffer. We could say, why don't you have a nice relaxing bath with a bath bomb, or why don't we hire a nice movie and eat some popcorn and have a little like home cinema night. Everybody's different, so what one child will think is a nice treat, another one will think isn't. So your child and what kind of thing that they would like. So just have some treats every so often. I know one thing that I've definitely missed during this lockdown is going to the cinema. That was one of my favourite things to do. I wouldn't mind a little home cinema night. Another thing you can do is to encourage your child to be more creative, and again this will keep them off the screens for a bit as well. So when you're feeling miserable, the last thing you feel like doing is a painting. When someone says, oh, why don't you do a painting, you just think no, but there must be something that they wouldn't mind trying to do, such as making some jewellery, baking a cake, doing some sewing. Again, everybody's different, everybody enjoys different things, but there must be something that you can find that your child will do that is creative, that really helps to relax the mind and just focus on something else that's not negative. As I'm sure you know, exercise really, really helps lift the mood, but starting is the hardest thing. Again, it's really hard to be motivated. So if your child has you there to encourage them and say, why don't we go for a run, or why don't we do this yoga video together that I've found on YouTube, or why don't we do the weights that we've got, if you've got some weights at home or something. But try to have a regular little exercise routine going if you can. You might even find it easier to say, I need your encouragement, can you help me, will you exercise with me? And then that might be a way to encourage them to exercise. Another thing that really helps to relieve depression is if you help other people. So you could explain that to your child and say, if you try to help other people, that can really help you feel better. So it might be, if you have younger siblings, that they help with those, brushing a younger sibling's hair and putting it into a ponytail, or doing some housework for you. Anything where they're helping can also make them feel better. Perhaps they could help you cook the dinner. Maybe they could go to the shop for you to collect something that you need. I think one of the most important things to do to keep depression away or at bay is to keep a good routine. Get up in the morning. I know kids now, they don't want to get up in the morning, do they, because they don't have to go to school, but it's still a good idea to get up in the morning, get washed, get dressed, not spend all day in your pyjamas, because that just feels grimy. Have your meals at the right time, breakfast, lunch and dinner, and then go to bed at a reasonable time. Again, this might be a really difficult thing to get your child to start doing again. They don't have any motivation to get into that routine, but perhaps you could say, if you do those things, then you can reward yourself with, like one of the things that I said earlier, like a movie night, or having a bath with a bath bomb, whatever. So if you have a day where you get up in the morning, you get washed, you get dressed, you eat at the right times, and then you go to bed before midnight, then the next day you get to reward yourself with something. It's worth a try. And my last piece of advice is to encourage your child to see the advantages of having this time at home during lockdown, and to use that time wisely. As I said, we've been in this lockdown for almost 300 days now. Now, if during those 300 days you'd spent just an hour a day doing something, imagine how far you would have got with that something by now. It could have been, you could have spent an hour a day writing a book, or doing weights, or all different things. So if you'd have been doing that from the beginning, you'd have done 300 hours of weightlifting so far this lockdown, and think how much improvement you would show on your body, and how much better your mind would feel because of that, because you'd have achieved something great. Or if you spent those 300 hours writing a book, imagine how far you would have got with that. Maybe you would have already finished by now. Maybe you would be on your second book. I mean, again, how much of an achievement would that feel? I would suggest really trying to get your child to think about that, and thinking about what they could do with an hour a day that would accumulate over time and really benefit them. It could be an excellent time to start a blog. It could be an excellent time for them to start a YouTube channel, all different things. They could spend that an hour a day learning a foreign language. There are so many possibilities. Anyway, they are all my bits of advice that I can think of right now. I'm sure there are many, many more. Oh, another one is to do meditating. Perhaps if you can find an app that helps your child meditate for 10 minutes a day, that could also really, really help. But yeah, other than that, I think that's all I can think of today. Yes, it's a very difficult time. Let me know in the comments below how it's going for you and your children. I'd love to hear about that. But yes, I really do hope that these tips helped you. So thank you very much for watching. Would love it if you would subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.